Hello, welcome to another Wine with Tweedy video. I thought for a change I would survey one of my local supermarkets to see what the English sparkling wine offering was like. My area of London particularly, and in fact London in general, seems to have this bizarre lack of interest in English sparkling. I have my theories as to why that might be, and it's partly political, and let's not get into that. But it is strange. I end up buying the majority of my English sparkling from the web because the selection in any actual wine shops and or supermarkets in London is pretty limited, actually, surprisingly. I hadn't really given Marks and Spencer much thought before. I was pleasantly surprised, actually. There were 3 different counties, 6 different producers, and a total of 9 individual English sparkling wines represented there, which is, better than I expected it was going to be. Quick run through these. I'm going to go in sort of descending order of price, which sort of unsurprisingly is somewhat correlated with how much I like these particular producers and these wines. So at the top end of their offering, they had Nightimber's Classic Cuvée. That's always sold now as what they call a multi-vintage, which is the same as a non-vintage. But, I believe generally very good. Their price, £41, is really kind of over the top. I mean, it's one of those things that's constantly having special offers. Waitrose right now have a kind of 6 bottles get 25% off offer. Again, they did that a few weeks ago as well. So you can definitely get it for a lot less than, especially if you're buying other wines at the same time, than £41. That's kind of seems a bit extreme, but it is, I believe, a very, very solid choice. I'm almost never disappointed with a bottle of Nightimber. They also had the rosé on at £46, even more eye-watering. Can't say I'm such a massive fan of Nightimber's rosé. I find it just a tiny, tiny touch on the sweet side, and given that it's more expensive than their regular white, for want of a better word, classic cuvee, then I'd always far rather go for the regular classic cuvee. Next up, Hambledon from Hampshire. So Nightimber, mixture of Sussex and Hampshire, their grapes come from. Hambledon, I believe, mostly based in Hampshire. Their home vineyard is in Hampshire, and it looked like possibly this is a special edition of their wine that they produce for M&S, or at least labelled for M&S. It's referred to as Chalk Hills by Hambledon. That comes in at £37. Next is the bottle that I went for, because I think they're a reliably good producer and typically a bit lower price point than the others there. Hattingley Valley actually has a vintage on it, 2018. They're also from Hampshire. We're going to taste some of that in a minute. Scanning quickly down the rest of the list, Chapel Down, one of probably the biggest producer in England of English sparkling, based in Kent. Not a huge fan personally. I find their wines a little bit thin and unexciting. £25.50. Still staying in Kent. In fact, the rest of the list all in Kent. Balfour from Hush Heath estate, which is near Staplehurst, I think, in Kent. Still traditional method sparkling, so still champagne style, champagne grapes. It's some mixture of Pinot Noir and or Chardonnay, I believe. Have 2 different wines coming at £23, which is, on price alone, actually a very good price for traditional method English sparkling. There's both a white and a rosé there. It's quite a while since I've tried any of those wines. Years ago, I remember feeling a little bit, I had similar feelings to Chapel Down, was slightly underwhelmed by it, but I should probably revisit that because I think particularly at that price point, that could be, it could be a bargain there. Finally, Bramble Hill. I think this is possibly a brand that's just made specially for Marks and Spencer. The producer, I believe, is called Silverhand Estate, or the vineyard that it comes from is Silverhand Estate. Again in Kent, and that is somewhere near Gravesend. It's actually Charmat method, so it's not really traditional method like English sparkling usually is, or champagne is, for example. It's the same method used as for Prosecco, which is a much more sort of mechanized, automated process involving very large tanks, and it's a rapid production line, and consequently some people believe that leads to lower quality wines, but that's obviously a subjective thing. It's a matter of opinion. I'm not personally a fan of that Prosecco or Charmat method style, but those are, if you particularly wanted to support English wine for some reason, they are comparatively very reasonably priced. I think they had a white at 15 and a rosé possibly at 16. It's not all champagne grapes, it's worth noting. The Bramble Hill, they use, there are some champagne grapes. I think there's some Pinot Noir and some Chardonnay and possibly even some Meunier in there, but it's supplemented by Bacchus, which is this grape of possibly Germanic origin that seems to work particularly well in the English climate. Not sure how useful that survey of just my local Marks and Spencer in North London will be, because of course every store will have a different selection. It's not a huge Marks and Spencer, so possibly, you know, if you happen to have a larger M&S with a larger food hall closer to you, then you might even find more on offer than that. Anyway, enough babbling. The one that I went for, as mentioned before, was the Hattingley Valley. So this is subtly rebranded for M&S. It's part of their, M&S collection. But I believe this will be very similar to the classic cuvées, the sort of standard white English sparklings that Hattingley Valley produce. It's a 2018 vintage. 2018 was that absolute bumper crop in England, the biggest outturn of English sparkling producers to date. Still, I believe, I don't think it's been bettered yet. Emma Rice, I believe, their wine producer. I think this is generally reliably pretty good, and you know, it's usually a bit cheaper than its competitors. You quite often get this on offer from Waitrose as well, so this may not have been the cheapest place to buy it, but it has this lovely sort of appley notes. I mean, it's all about the apples. This sort of slightly baked, slightly sweet apple, sort of apple pie, kind of really concentrated, almost sort of apple candy, kind of candied apples, toffee apples, and some sort of autolytic kind of pastry notes. So, you know, something like kind of baked apple pie kind of profile. Nice texture on the palate. Nice bit of zingy, consistently sort of green apple sort of fizz there. Really quite fine bubbles. I think that's lovely. I mean, you know, you could argue compared to something with perhaps a bit more complexity like Night Timber that this is it's a tiny bit on the simplistic side, but all the things that it simply expresses are actually very nice. This sort of lovely, slightly sweet. I mean, overall, it isn't a sweet wine. It's, you know, definitely in the brut category, quite dry, quite acidic. But there is this sort of nice, balanced, sweet, appley note that makes it sort of moreish, mouth-watering. Yes, that was useful. Quick roundup of M&S's current English sparkling offering as of September 2023. Cheers.